McLaren have developed a somewhat uncanny penchant for developing production road cars that redefine established performance benchmarks. It feels like it's just become their minimum requirement. When they released the F1 in 1995, they effectively tore up the rulebooks on what ultimate road car meant. Their projects are always no compromise affairs. First all-carbon bodied road car, central seating position, lightweight, even an engine bay that's been lined in gold. Yes, McLaren are known for raising the bar. With the F1, they raised the bar so high in fact, that it's still the fastest normally aspirated production car in the world. That's some 20 years later. Pitch it against the Veyron to 150 miles per hour, and the Veyron would be looking squarely at the rear quarter panel of the F1. What's crazy is that this was their very first road car. It's hard to call it a production car when only 106 of them are made. So when McLaren entered the real production supercar area with MP412C, it smoked the competition performance-wise and by a vast margin. But perhaps it lacked a bit of character. And that's the thing. You see, McLaren is often accused, certainly within the car industry, of creating cars that have no soul. There's no art in their design, they say. It's all formality, it's all business. But when McLaren swapped the F to a P and gave us P1, they proved that that was no longer the case. This was a car that not only provoked the soul, it jabbed the eye, it yanked at the pants of anybody that placed an eye near it. It rekindles those emotions of wanting to put a poster back up on the wall. And if it wasn't on your wall, it was on your phone. And if it wasn't there, it was at least on your mind. It had performance to match as well, in many instances ousting performances of other hypercars. Hybrid was here, and it was in the form of hypercars, and once again McLaren was defining a new generation. To be fair, nobody could really buy that. A list price of over $1 million in whatever currency you choose, you had to be invited to purchase it, and even if you had pockets deep enough to be able to get your hands into hypercars or supercars, it was a seeming impossibility, unobtainable even for those with deeper pockets than most. But now we have something new, something that changes all of that. This is McLaren rewriting the rulebooks once again. This is 720s. A car that has a purpose, once again, of raising the bar. The brief was simple. No evolution. This is revolution. The representation of a new language for all future McLarens, and to redefine what it actually means to be a supercar. No pressure then. This car sits appropriately within the Super Series within McLaren's range. It all starts off with a Sport Series covering 570s all the way up to 600 LT. And then you move on into the Super Series, and as the name suggests, that's where this car lives, the 720s, which leaves the Ultimate Series for things like P1 and Senna. This car really does deserve a close look at its details. These new controversial front lights are called eye sockets by McLaren, delivering significant aero gains while giving the opportunity to create class-leading upright LED lenses. Cooling is always key on supercars, especially when you're generating over 700 brake horsepower. The approach here was to split the airflow, sucking turbulent air from the wheels through beautiful sculpturing on the doors, whilst also using the door panels and the splits in the door panels to be able to create these advanced aero surfaces. Like the 488, there's no GT3-like wings here, butchering its beauty. No, McLaren took its learnings from the huge active rear wing on the 675 LT and created a fully integrated active rear wing and air brake. The tub is all new, it's called Monocage 2 now, and the reason why is because the carbon fibre roof is built into the tub, just like the P1. The contours of 720s are still distinctly McLaren, triggering hints of P1 in its overall shape. With a familiar LED light design at the rear, yet it's the details that are different. It hasn't forgot the tin it's baked in, it's got dihedral doors just like the F1, and to open them there's a paddle that sits in between the inner and outer skin of the doors. It's even got some subtle interior clues from the F1 that are seldom noticed, like those two additional information displays that sit just below the main driver information binnacle. Personally, I think this car is absolutely stunning. It is exquisite form following McLaren's ingenious trademark function. So here are the essential numbers. 710 brake horsepower in English money is produced from the 4-litre twin-turbo V8. This isn't a bored out or restroke version of the 3.8 litre that was in 650S. This is fundamentally new component-wise. 568 pounds-foot powers the 0 to 60 time of 2.9 seconds, with 0 to 124 being delivered in 7.8. To frame some perspective on that, the mind-blowing 488 from a couple of weeks back did this in 8.4. Top speed is 213 miles an hour, and interestingly, the quarter mile is officially 10.4. The cars have been known to be delivering sub 10 second quarter mile times. That's insane. To shed light once again, a 10.4 quarter mile is Bugatti Veyron performance. This car is beyond fast. Brakes, carbon ceramic affairs with 6 pots up front and 4 pots on the rear. Weight is 1200 kilos dry, 1400 wet, and it's all yours for £280,000. So these are the numbers, but how does this car feel? And does it actually redefine anything as it was originally intended? Right, so it's really driver focused in here. Even the steering wheel is simplified down to just that, steering. No buttons, switches or toggles here. This is a really pure experience. Somehow, even with keeping things as simple as McLaren do, they've managed to make it as wild on the inside here as it is on the outside, and I just love it. It feels really, really roomy in here, much more so than 12C or 650S. There's actually less space in here, but it's clever packaging all over again. This is typical McLaren. One of the most notable things about sitting in one of these McLarens is the really low scuttle. You can just see so much out of the front. It's effectively the ideal driver's view. So these early turns of California highway are pretty punishing at any speed, but when you're taking this at that kind of GT cruising pace, it's really easy to run this package. There's lots of front end grip, and this is actually a really easy car to drive, definitely at GT speeds. Right, let's get a wriggle on and see what this car's like in anger. This is just... Come on. Okay, so the chassis is really balanced. Acceleration, you can see it, it's ridiculous. Turning is fast, it's very crisp. It's not as fast as the Ferrari, it's not as fast as the 488, but and that car can be quite edgy. So this is a little bit less than that, but it's very well balanced. You can actually feel a lot of this aero going on, which is remarkable. Again, just like the 488, there's no outside visual aero surfaces, so for the car to be generating this much downforce is actually incredible. Brakes, it's hard to tell here. There's definitely nothing to complain about for sure, but you really need to be on the track to know just how well these brakes are performing when you're driving up against something else. The sound, it's not a sonorous sound like a Lamborghini Huracan, but you know what, I like it. It's got lots of additional noises, lots of whooshies, pops and bangs. It's interesting, it's technical, it's McLaren with soul still. The fact that this thing's got number plates, I mean seriously, this has got number plates. Come on, really? Yeah, this is too much car for this kind of environment. We need a much bigger playground for this. This is absurdly capable. In just about any context that you want to quantify it, this car is bonkers. So we have to come back to that question. Have McLaren redefined anything here? Have they set a new benchmark in the world of supercars? Well, to know, of course, we need an actual benchmark. So now we head to Roseman, California for some track time at Willow Springs Motorsport Park. It has a number of layouts here, but we're heading to the Big Willow circuit, known for being the fastest road in the West. This 2.5 mile circuit was finished in 1953, and incredibly, it holds the original configuration to this very day. What marks it out as special are the elevation changes and the tremendously high average top speeds. You need power here. Now, setting fastest laps here is special in a Nordschleife kind of way. Everybody wants to be the top dog here. So our first benchmark comes from a brand that epitomizes supercar poster stardom. It's Lamborghini. This is the Aventador LP704, 700 brake horsepower, V12, all-wheel drive, brutal single-clutch transmission, F1 style pushrod suspension. The stats are, well, super. 217 mile an hour top speed, 0 to 60 in 2.8, quarter mile 10.6. You get the point. This is in every respect super. Now we've bolted on a set of Trofeo R's and we're putting the car into the equivalent of a Corsa mode, so think of a traction control that's set between a 20 and 25% slip angle, and then it's time to just get on the track and see what this car can do. So, the Lamborghini Aventador dropped in a time of 120.957, and that's for a similarly spec'd supercar. But here's the thing, we know that the 720s should handle that. We know that McLarens are famous for over-delivering. So let's raise the bar, let's move it to the next segment of performance entirely. You know what we're talking about here, hypercars. This is Porsche's 918, a £1 million hypercar that features a normally aspirated 4.6 litre V8 producing 608 horsepower, augmented with 2 motors on the front wheels to give it an extra 286 horsepower. All in, that's 894 brake horsepower, 944 pounds-foot of torque, and all-wheel drive to put it all down. 0 to 60, 2.5, top speed 217 again. This car actually set the lap record here at Big Willow, so it's going to leave some pretty big tracks for the 720s to follow in. That 918 really is a totally different type of vehicle to haul around the track. Everything you know about extracting speed from a car is challenged. It's so different how to approach this car. Instant torque delivery, very different brakes. It all led, in the end, to a stratospheric lap time. 1 minute, 17.4. That's 3.5 seconds difference between a conventional supercar, if you can call a supercar conventional. So if the 720s can even get into the sub 120s or even sub 119s, it would have placed itself into a class of its own. So the question is, what lap time will it actually do? There's only one way to find out. This is its moment. a 1:17.9, less than half a second off the mark of a 918. That is simply remarkable. Most of us would struggle to successfully click half a second on a stopwatch. Keep in mind, this is a production road car. If you've got the pesetas, you can walk into McLaren and get one of these right away, and you can immediately go out and play with cars that have got price tags that are at least £750,000 more expensive. The mind literally boggles. It's broadly capable. It will outperform a Huracan Performante, it will square up to a 911 GT2, it will even challenge hypercars if you ask it to. So when your supercars start to perform in the same envelope as hypercars, you know that you have changed the game. This is a game changer. So for now, McLaren once again has rewritten the rulebooks. What a breathtaking production.